Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Spider-Verse Retrospectives, and today we'll be continuing our discussion of the Spider-Verse tie-ins of Secret Wars as we take a look at Spider-Verse Volume 2, Number 3. Now, last time on Spider-Verse. With the multiverse destroyed, the various bits and pieces of the destroyed worlds were patched together into a new world called Battleworld, with each region of Battleworld being what was left of one of those dead parallel universes. One of those regions was a version of New York where, for whatever reason, Spider-Man had seemingly vanished, and for another reason that I don't understand, a handful of Spideys from across the multiverse have cultivated here. Specifically, Gwen Stacy, aka Spider-Gwen, Billy Braddock, aka Spider UK, Anya Corazon, aka the main universe Spider Girl, Pavitr Prabhakar, aka Spider-Man India, Peter Porker, aka Spider-Ham, and finally Spider-Man Noir, who I'm not even going to say aka because we already know he's an alternate Peter Parker. But put simply, for whatever reason, despite how Battleworld typically operates and how the people of Battleworld all seem to have don't all seem to believe that this is the life they've always lived, these handful of Spideys all seem to have somewhat lingering memories from their lives before Battleworld, but none of them really know how to sort it out. Thankfully, Pavitr was able to use that connection to bring all the Spideys together, with the last Spidey that they were able to find being Spider-Man Noir, as he was in the middle of a sting operation as he was at a warehouse by the docks in order to take down two supercriminals, specifically Tombstone and Carnage. And while the various Spideys were able to work together to take them down, sadly Noir actually did not want the Spideys to meet up like this because he knows that if they were able to find him, then someone else was as well. And sadly, last issue ended as we saw who had tracked him, as the group was ambushed by the Sinister Six of this domain, which in this case consists of Scorpion, Sandman, Electro, Dr. Octopus, Vulture, and Kraven the Hunter. And that's where this issue begins, as the Spideys see the group of supervillains and, well, they realize that they're there to do them harm, especially when the Scorpion says that they were ordered to bring them in without harm, but if they want to put up a fight, they wouldn't be against it, especially since this gives them a chance to dunk down on a handful of Spideys. As such, the Spideys do engage the Six in battle, and while they do all put up a good fight and are very skilled and able to outmaneuver the Six in some areas, sadly, as a team, they're inexperienced. From their perspectives, again, they have no idea how to work with each other. They're all very different. They're all very different Spider people, and sadly, because of their lack of experience, they don't know how to coordinate with one another. Whereas the Six, well, despite the fact that they're not soldiers, as Billy starts noting, they're clearly battle forged and know how to compensate for strengths and weaknesses across the group. So sadly, the Six is able to unfortunately overpower the Spideys and take them all down. They again don't kill them, but they do end up grabbing them and bring them back to their boss. In this case, Norman Osborn, who, yeah, he fully admits that he did not want things to get that hairy, so to speak. As once the Spideys come to, they end up meeting Norman in his office, and he explains that, well, he just wanted to come see them. Of course, Gwen ends up noting why the heck would he send the murder party, so to speak. And Norman argues that he was aware that there were other super criminals at the site. In this case, like I said, Tombstone and Carnage, and he felt that basically basically the Spideys would probably need some backup if things got too hairy. Which again, they start wondering, well, how did you know where we were in order to send them? At which point Norman reveals that someone told him, and sure enough, one of the Spideys ends up walking into the room eating a barbecue pork sandwich. Peter Porker. Yet, turns out that while it looked like Peter Porker was being experimented on when Gwen found him, he was living here willingly. He actually had a good life, and it explains why he wasn't freaking out and asking for help when Gwen came to save him, because, well, this place is home to him. And basically, after Gwen took him out of here, he called and let them know where he was, which there actually was a point in the last comic where you kind of could have seen him doing that, because while the Spideys were all just trading notes in the last issue, there was one panel where you could see Spider-Ham talking on what looked like a walkie-talkie, so he could have easily had that the whole time and could have been calling Norman saying, oh yeah, we're all right here, something like this is happening, that's happening, oh, we're going to the warehouse, we might be fighting supervillains, so just a heads up, so this is what may be happening. So I can actually buy that. Of course, Gwen is horrified by this and even thinks that Spider-Ham is a Judas for this, so to speak, but especially since he's eating pork and he's a pig. But Spider-Ham defends himself, saying that one, Norman is his friend, and two, he's clearly a higher life form than the pigs on this planet, so he thinks he's fine. But either way, with that little bit of treachery out of the way, Norman does reveal why exactly he wanted to find the Spideys, because, put simply, he needs their help with something. Basically, he's been actually looking into all their exotic frequencies, as Pavitr noted, they all seem to exude the same resonance across them. All the Spideys that we see here all seem to be radiating with the same energy, so to speak, the same resonance that all seems to be communicating with one another. And basically, they've been able to map it out, and even Norman admits that Pavitr was Norman's surprised that Pavitr was even able to track it with his technology, but is also impressed by it. And he does soon reveal to the Spideys exactly why he wants to talk to them, and he thinks that he may be able to offer them a solution to their collective problems. Since, after all, they seem to have lingering emotion. They seem to have, like I said, they have lingering memories of lives they don't remember leading. So he might have a potential answer to that. And as such, he ends up leading the Spideys into another room, and basically through their studies, he and his scientists are able to kind of create a map of we're able to create essentially a fifth dimensional viewing scope into some higher plane of existence. And ultimately he was able to figure out exactly what was connecting the Spideys, as in the center of the room, there is a holographic projector showcasing a web in tatters. Yep, this is supposed to be the Web of Life and Destiny. Hold on one second. Sorry, dog stuff. But yeah, like I said, this is the Web of Life. This is essentially a digital projection of the Web of Life and Destiny. And again, I do like the added detail that it's essentially in tatters, because, well, the Web of Life and Destiny was supposed to be the foundation of the multiverse, and since the gimmick with Secret Wars was that the multiverse was destroyed, it makes sense why the web would be in tatters. But of course, it's clearly still somewhat there, because this handful of Spideys are still feeling a connection to it, and clearly that connection is still allowing them to reach back to the lives they're supposed to be leading, as they all still have memories from before Battle World. And while they may not be able to consciously access them, aside from maybe dreams and maybe just some offhand mentions here and there, otherwise, the fact that they have them at all still showcases that there is still a connection there. And Norman believes that if he can figure out how the Web of Life and Destiny operates and how the Spideys are all connected to it, then he may be able to essentially fix their problem and potentially maybe send them home. Of course, not all the Spideys actually are drinking the Kool-Aid. Pavitr is actually geeking out about this, because this confirms what he's been studying, and he wants to study it more. And with Norman's capabilities, he thinks he'll be perfectly able to look more into it, with even a comic panel showing him working alongside Otto Octavius and Norman to try and map the thing out. But likewise, Gwen thinks that Norman is full of it, and even calls the other Spideys into another room to discuss it. And she personally thinks that all of this just sounds fishy. Good. But here's a weird little, basically, it's clear. Basically, if you read Spider-Verse, you know that Norman is not technically lying here. But even Gwen still doesn't fully believe that Norman is on the up and up. After all, this is a guy who hired supervillains to hunt them down rather than just go to talk to them. Well, he claimed that he was trying to be cautious. After all, he didn't know they were actually superheroes, but could have been costume criminals, so to speak. Even Gwen thinks it's a load of bull, and she doesn't really want to trust him. However, the Spideys are kind of standing their ground. Ham isn't going anywhere because this is his home, and Billy doesn't want to leave Pavitr alone in case things aren't what they seem, and likewise, Anya doesn't want to leave Billy alone either, so they're not going anywhere. And when Gwen thinks that fine, it's just her and Spider-Man Noir, then, well, it turns out Noir doesn't want to leave either, as he wants to see what else is going on here. And while Gwen thinks that that's ludicrous, as she puts it, he seems like one of those people that thinks the moon landing is fake. Is there even a moon in Battle World? Whatever. Basically, his defense is that he's turning over a new leaf. And so Gwen pretty much says, you know what, screw you guys, fine, and I'm just gonna leave then. And sure enough, she asks Norman if they're prisoners here, but he says that, no, they can leave whenever they want. So Gwen pretty much gives him a rough equivalent of up yours, before tearing off a window and jumping off into the city. basically, from there, to try and take her mind off things and to stop herself from feeling guilty for just abandoning her new friends, Gwen just starts going around the city and does, well, superhero stuff, beats up muggers, saves innocent lives, and so on and so forth. But she still is kind of feeling some lingering guilt, and likewise, to try and deal with it, she does end up going back to her happy place, which again is the cemetery where her grave is. And so, yeah, while this still feels kind of morbid and still brings up weird, creepy feelings, oddly enough, she feels that coming here is just peaceful. However, Gwen finds that she's not alone as someone pops up behind her and even makes a comment about how peaceful it is, which startles Gwen, but oddly enough, this mystery stranger did not trigger her spider sense. And so, as Gwen wants to know who the heck this is, this person comes into view and introduces himself. And the comic ends as we see Gwen Stacy meeting this region's version of Peter Parker. And that's it. And so, okay, so likewise, what are my thoughts on this issue? Again, I do like how the story progresses, so to speak. It is kind of cool seeing the Spideys now operating as a team, but it also kind of feels like a double-edged sword, if that makes any sense. On the one hand, while it makes sense that the Spideys would not be as well coordinated as they would be as they would be on their own, as these are a team of new as from their perspectives, like I said, they have no experience with each other and likewise have no idea how to compensate with one another, versus the Sinister Six, who's been through plenty of battles and probably knows very well how to handle a fight. But at the same time, they're all still very well skilled, and while they may not be consciously aware of it, these are all alternate versions of Spider-Man. Yeah, they all have different ways of operating, but we saw in Spider-Verse that they at least could somewhat coordinate, though you could also make the argument that in Spider-Verse they could have planned things out beforehand. So, after all, I'll maybe give a pass for that. Especially since the Sinister Six kind of came out of nowhere, so they wouldn't really have a chance to coordinate with one another, and it especially doesn't help that they jumped in and recruited a sixth guy right off the bat, and now they have to find a way to cooperate with him, which, again, another little thing. It feels weird that Spider-Man Noir is still going for the killing blow here, as during the battle he ends up opening fire on Doc Ock with his rifles, which, in an odd way, kind of makes sense, considering his feelings towards his own world's version of Otto Octavius. But again, since he can't consciously access those memories, still feels weird that he's still using the rifles. And before someone points out, well, Spider-Man Noir did end up killing someone in his solo series, I want to make something clear. That was meant to be part of the character-defining moments, as when he did kill someone, it was in front of his Aunt May in that story, and his Aunt May was horrified and rightfully wound up calling Peter out. And then likewise later on in the story, when he could have taken another villain out, he wound up stopping himself and decided, no, I don't want to be that kind of hero. So I'm still gonna call BS. Well, like I said, while Spider-Man Noir does carry a revolver and is willing to use it if the situation gets hairy enough, he's also one of those heroes that won't use it unless he has no choice. Like in the case of Edge of Spider-Verse #1, where he fought Mysterio hand to hand and only pulled out the revolver when he was up against the immortal vampire who came to his dimension to try and kill him. So, I'm still gonna call bullshit on that. But again, so the fight's a little wonky, but still interesting enough. It is still cool to see the different Spideys fighting alongside each other. But this is also where things get very confusing, if that makes any sense. I don't want to say, for starters, Norman Osborn. Because even when I first read this issue, it felt weird to see him acting like the good guy, so to speak. Especially since there's clearly a lot of subterfuge, cover-up, and weird goings on behind the scenes at Oscorp, and all seem to be tied to him. So it feels strange to see him being so open in this comic. And so throughout the whole issue, as Norman is being all chummy with the various Spideys, like Gwen, you're kind of on edge about him. Because on the one hand, it's somewhat clear that he's telling the truth a little bit, because what he's talking about is exactly what the Spideys have been going through. They all resonate with the web of life and destiny, and that connection is stirring up lingering memories from their original lives. And likewise, through looking into that connection, they're able to actually map out the web of life and destiny. And if they think, and Norman does think that if they can study it, they might be able to find a solution. What he's saying is not technically wrong. And again, what I kind of like about this is that it somewhat ties into the overarching plot with Secret Wars, as after all, Battleworld is supposed to be a composite of the various parallel universes, or a handful of the parallel universes from across the multiverse. So basically, having the idea of the Spideys having a connection to something that was created specifically to map out the original multiverse now, and realizing that this thing might be the key to fixing what's wrong with them, it also can be leading into them potentially fixing what's going on in Battleworld. That if they can figure out what the web of life and what's up with the web of life and destiny, then maybe they can actually they can maybe put everything back together and reclaim that which they lost, i.e., their original lives. But this is also Norman Osborn, and the number of universes where this guy is on the up and up I can count on one hand. So the idea of seeing him being all friendly with the Spideys, acting all chummy, and even saying, well, you guys can stay here if you want, but you can leave any time, it feels off. And like when you don't, it feels like it feels strange. You get some strange vibes coming from him, and so it feels, and so at the same, so when all the other Spideys decide to give him a shot, in a way, it somewhat makes sense. But if you want further credence to how creepy this guy is, I refer you to issue 1 at the end of the Pig in the City storyline, where we saw him smiling evilly when he went to go recruit Spider-Ham, and then likewise, this is a guy who employs the Sinister Six. Yeah, because that sounds stable, right? Right. It just, something is not right here. You can tell that something isn't right here. And while he's putting on his best PR face, while Norman's putting on his best PR face and does talk all calm and nice and friendly with the Spider people, you can sense that there's something off about his demeanor. And so likewise, while you and so likewise, well, it's clear, and so likewise, well, it feels strange that he would that. So while it feels strange for them to trust him, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but you also know that he might be up to something, but you're kind of figuring out, what does he get out of this? What does he get from helping the Spideys realize their connection to the web of life and destiny, and likewise the original multiverse? Something is going on behind the scenes here, and like Gwen, you're a bit weary about it. And so, but at the same time, I like how they hint. So I like how they hint towards that, and it makes you kind of even more. I mean, it still makes you wonder exactly what the heck's going on. I do like that they actually do establish more about how the Spideys are connected with the web again, because I like that little bit of continuity that they are still bringing up that connection to the web of life and destiny, and then like I said, I still find it cool that they did actually talk that it was still a major part of this, that it is a major part of the story, and they talk about how the web is in tatters because, again, multiverse destroyed. But again, likewise in terms of story, it still leaves you wanting for answers, because you still want to know what Norman gets out of this. And I feel, and so it does raise some questions, especially with the final shot of the comic, because after all, the big gimmick with this domain, besides the fact that it's crawling with spider people, is that the primary Spider-Man, the one that did call this world home, he's not around. We don't know what happened to him, and anything that the Spideys can get on him is vague at best, just rumors and speculation. So for the final shot of the comic to reveal Gwen Stacy now meeting up with this domain's Peter Parker, I find it interesting. I like it. Although it does also lay a hint about that he's not in business anymore, because when he introduces himself, that he says he was Spider-Man. So it does still make you wonder why he's been quiet for all these years and hasn't tried to come back out, especially with Norman Osborn being the Baron of this domain and having as much power as he does. So it does leave you asking. So again, while we do get answers in some things, it leaves you wanting in others, and still kind of drops a bombshell when we end up finally meeting this domain's Peter Parker. So again, it's interesting. So again, so oh, and again, so overall, the issue itself is fine. It still lays the groundwork, but it does still leave you wanting, which again is probably the best part, which is probably what they're trying to go for. This is the third issue in a 5-issue miniseries. We're halfway through the story now, so we need an. So of course, they still have to drop enough threads to make you want to see what's going on. But it still leaves you wondering. But it's definitely interesting to think about. Again, still, it's cool to see all the Spideys at least meeting up for a change. I do like that I finally seeing their personalities now working off each other, because again, big gimmick, they're all very different Spideys. But overall, issue is fine. Still, like I said, answers enough questions, but leaves you wanting in others enough so they keep you wanting to know what's going on. And the final reveal, this still means Peter Parker. Definitely a nice grab to make you wonder what the heck's going on with him. So, yeah, I think that's about it. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you on Tuesday as we look at issue 4. And if you plan to see Across the Spider-Verse today, I hope you enjoy it. So, till then, I hope you have a good Saturday. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll hopefully see you on Tuesday. Take care.